Alright, Shalom Akim. It's the brother Aryaga from the Grand Rapids camp. First of all, I want to start out by saying all praises to Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai, Ba'Shem Makar Kwadash. Double honors to the apostles out there and the brothers out there doing these works in truth and sincerity. Shalom. Just coming to you with a quick lesson. I wanted to follow up on a lesson that was done by the camp over the weekend, last weekend. Basically just going into the downfall of Rome and the resemblance that it shares with this kingdom. And, just further edification. We basically know the basics of what's happening throughout history and the similarities that these different kingdoms hold in tandem with each other, because we know them to be set up by the Most High to fall in their time and to come into power in their time. With the Roman Empire specifically, we know that it is a reincarnation, or America is a reincarnation of the Roman Empire, or the Roman Empire never fully fell, to be exact. Alright, so I'm going to start with the opening part, then I'll move on down. It says, unfortunately, feminism and future is an oxymoron, or fortunately, depending on your point of view, and it seems to be unstable on the long run. Right, because as I was talking to a friend I was speaking to earlier, it's unstable. I mean, it went from each household being taxed by just the men. When does that? 1960s and 40s, to a household that's taxing men and women. That's why the cost of living is so high. Alright. So a lot of kids are continuing on. Let's go back into the article. Based on past history, it appears that a civilization that embraces feminist values will cease to exist in just a few centuries. This is why we have never seen a feminist civilization aside from very short spans at the end of the Roman Empire and possibly a few other more ancient civilizations. Right. So at the span of those empires, which we at the current end of this age as we speak, this empire is coming down all around us. And this is Jeremiah 28:8. The prophets that have been before me and before thee of old prophesied both against many countries and against great kingdoms, of war and of evil and of pestilence. And this feminist shit is evil in all actuality, because it's showing the women to usurp authority over a man, which should not be. So let's continue on. We're going to jump further down. We're going to get straight into it like we did out on the highways and the hedges. Like I said, I just want to really cover this again and go over it a second time. So, all of the bits and pieces of certification can come out. So it says, 5th century BC, Roman civilization is a strong patriarchy. Fathers are liable for the actions of their wife and children and have absolute authority over the family, including the power of life and death. Jumping down to, so men had the hearsay over the households at that point in time. Like I said, it was a patriarchy. Patriarchy set up as the men being the head of the family. It says 5th century BC Rome equals 1700 to 1920 America. The family unit is essentially father knows best, and slutting around by women is considered to be the height of shameful behavior, as is catting about by men, which catting about is a bunch of bullshit. But we can just put that in the terms of adultery. Alright. Monogamy is held up as an ideal arrangement without exception. The Wild West might be an exception to the general rule of the day, as whoring and hell-raising were widespread in the frontier. Lessons look up to their betters as examples of moral rectitude. Right, so you had an order, right? Order in society, because a ruling class mentality is supposed to be upheld by the side that, or by the class that is up higher than the rest of the classes. Okay, and that's the original order of it. You part of the ruling class, you're supposed to maintain a certain standard as to those that are at the bottom of the food chain, so to speak. 3 to 4th century AD, a moral and demographic collapse takes place and the Roman population declines due to below replacement birth rates, right? Vice and massive corruption are rampant while the newborn Catholic religion, actually I think I skipped one, excuse me. No, I skipped a couple of these joints. It says 1st century BC Roman civilization blossoms into the most powerful and advanced civilization in the world. Material wealth is astounding. Citizens, i.e. non-slaves, do not need to work. Non-slaves, i.e., okay. They have running water, baths, and import spices from thousands of miles away. The Romans enjoy the art and philosophy and know and appreciate democracy, commerce, science, human rights, animal rights, children rights, and women become emancipated. All right, so it's not necessary to be free. They've been carried over into something. A ruler, basically been emancipated from being a woman, which is a servant to her husband, to being independent, putting you in the role of a man. No default divorce is enacted and quickly becomes popular by the end of the century. So that no fault divorce. So in other words, you don't really have to have a reason as to have a divorce. You can just have one because you want to be with somebody else. And it quickly becomes popular by the end of the century. Jumping down to 1st and 2nd century are AD Rome equals 1970 to 2000. No, I'm jumping the gun again. Slovakia, 1st century BC, Rome, 1920 to 1970. America is rising to the height of her power, a hyperpower being born, an economic military power henceforth unseen in all recorded history. While the world digs out from under the rubble consecutive wars and communist programs, we have a battalion of aircraft carriers, a largely homogeneous population, and cheap housing for everyone willing to put in an honest day's work. But the poison pill has been swallowed, and suffrage movement achieved the main goal, and the dark shroud of the equalist era is about to descend. In academic halls and classrooms, lessers are pedestrianized while betters are denigrated. And you started seeing a vast separation between the middle and the upper class and lower class around the 1920s to the 1970s. Hence, fast forward to the time that we're in now, they're trying to completely do away with the middle class, which they've successfully done. And, pretty much the demographic has been set. So the upper class and the lower class is only two classes that they seek to really keep within this kingdom that they have, which is the 1%, which being superior, and everybody else being in a form of servitude, continuous servitude, or corporate slaves. All right. So let's jump over here, because a lot of the similarities that we see, of course, is outlined by the very scriptures that are history book not just a book of law, statutes, and commandments. So let's see. It says Revelation 13:1. And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up from out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And we know that the beast is made up of NATO and EU joined together. Okay. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him power, and his seat, and great authority. So going back into the ancient world, that was a representation of Alexander the Great. That's why he gave the depiction of a leopard for the speed that he conquered the different countries in and expanded his kingdom. And his feet, the feet of a bear, those claws are tough, destroyed his competition. And his mouth as the mouth of a lion in regards to the different philosophies and things that went forth in the spreading of the empire and the dominating of an empire. It comes the intellectual teachings and the integrations into the Greek society, which you get a lot of this Hellenistic era from. All the way into the influence came down into Egypt, where they established Alexandria, which was a learning hub for the world at that time. For many years after that, it actually became the capital. And the dragon gave his power. Gave him his power and his seat and great authority. So the unison of all those nations put them up on top, so to speak. All these other nations were in vassalship, a ship underneath Alexander at that time, and they were forced to pay tribute. And so he was established as the head of that. But after he died, what happened? And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. Right, so going into Alexander the Great and the fall of him, who came up after that? The Roman Empire, which also integrated the Greeks, took them over, and the Roman Empire itself, when it was established on these same means, it was brought down from the inside out. That was one of the main ways, or one of the main reasons it fell to shambles. It was hard. You know, they had strong forces, different troop placements and battlements, and technologically advanced compared to other armies. Bright dress, right, so far as that soldiers and the different troop movements that they had, which made them hard to beat. But in the end, it ended up beating themselves from the inside out, because it was something that the Most High had established. It says, and they worshipped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast. And they worshipped the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast, who is able to make war with him? Right. And one of the things that was taking place, one of the things that's taking place in this present day, the Americas, and I say the Americas because, you know, anything or any of these different countries that's in alignment with America, or that's in pact with them, because you see a separation that's being brought forth right now between America and the American side and the Russian side. Let's just put it to you like that. The two opposing sides that's being brought forth into this next world war. And we see this happen continuously as the economy begins to stabilize more so around the world than just in a single country. And to bring balance, the only way that that is done or attained is through mass death. So mass death is wrought by war, which is another plan placed forward by the elites while they go and they hide in their bunkers and these nations wipe each other out. That's the plan that they have anyway. Many are the plans of a man's heart, but the Lord's will shall prevail. It says, and his deadly wound was healed. How was that deadly wound healed? Well, the Roman Empire continued on through its monarchy system in the Catholic Church, as we'll read further on into the into the article. So that deadly wound was healed, and the empire that we have now, which is this empire in the United States, um, is the offset of that, or the Catholic Church has direct governance over the United States. The Vatican does. Um, what did they say? The United States is the military might. Um, London is the finances, and Vatican is the monarchy or the religious figurehead, so to speak. So let's continue on. I'm trying not to make this too long. I like that picture too. That was when they were brought down from the inside out. So let's see. Here we go. All right, and first and second century AD, the family unit is destroyed. Men refuse to marry, and the government tries to revive marriage with the bachelor tax to no avail. Right, and when you see women go out gadding abroad, doing the things that seem right to them, having sex with all these dudes and putting you through hell. Why would you want to get married? That's the things that come with this feminist lifestyle. Um, and then they had the nerve to run around and try to tax you, which is a bachelor tax, but you see that today. They don't have any government programs set up for men, all right? Because you're still fully taxable, even when you have nothing. Let's see. This is Sirach 27:3. Unless a man hold himself diligently in the fear of Yahweh Shem Yahushai, his house shall soon be overthrown. That's the first staple in that. Because if you're not a man of Yahweh Shem Yahushai, your house is going to be overthrown anyway. So that's to be expected, especially with the changing of an age. Let's see. This is, I actually got that right here. That's a good scripture as well. 12th verse. This is Sirach 27:12. Oh no, this isn't it. Salakia. That is from another lesson I'm working on. This is Sirach 27:12. If thou be among the indiscreet, observe the time. Be continually among men of understanding. Right, and we constantly among the indiscreet because the majority of the people don't comprehend what's taking place in this society today. Even with this lesson, even with the comparison that's brought out continuously, this is pretty much, something that was been on the back burner. This has already been done. So we just pretty much bringing this to the forefront again is to further remind you of the times that we in. It says, observe the time to be continually among men of understanding. Now, who's that men of understanding? Starting with those men of great millstone who's bringing this truth, on to down to the other brothers out there who may not be fully affiliated with Great Millstone, but who push this truth, okay? Even to those that are reprobates that push somewhat of the truth, mixed with their own bullshit. One thing will be agreed on is just, this is definitely the end of times, whether they want to embrace it or not. Continuing on, it says the family unit is destroyed, men refuse to marry, and the government tries to revive marriage with a bachelor tax to no avail. Children are growing up without fathers. Roman women show little interest in raising their own children and frequently use nannies. The wealth and power of women grows very fast while men become increasingly demotivated, engage in prostitution and vice. Prostitution and homosexuality become widespread. Right. Because once you start turning everything asunder, turning everything upside down, I mean, the only thing that can ensue is madness and a lack of order and moral judgment. Everything is destroyed. It's brought down from the inside out. You know, because everything is thrown out of whack. And once these things are thrown out of whack, it's symbolizing the end of everything that was established, because that foundation starts to crumble. And once that foundation crumbles, there's nothing left, man. This is Isaiah 5:15. And the mean man shall be brought down, and the mighty man shall be humbled, and the eyes of the lofty shall be humble. Right. And that's what's happening in this kingdom, starting with our people too, man. Our people is not exempt of that, because the majority of our people is falling victim to these things as well. Okay. Bear with me for a second. All right. So let's jump on down to the present day. This is 1970 to 2000. In comparison to 12 BC AD Rome. The scourge of a single momhood, free and easy divorce, child support laws, majority female colleges, DADT repealed, gay marriage, game, etc., and feminism. In short, the ultimate expression of anti-discrimination, anti-received wisdom, individualist ideology, ironically buttressed by the groupthink of diversity mongers, lesser ignore their betters, who in turn renegade on their traditional responsibility to act as examples for the lessers. In other words, those in high regard act as, a bunch of niggas that have no sense. Here it is, all the ones that are of the higher majority, they're supposed to hold a certain standard, but they start acting based like people that's in the squander, which makes no sense, because it's supposed to be a nobility, and when the nobility ain't shit, and the people ain't shit, the people are supposed to, they start treating the nobility, the nobility similar to the average Joe. Let's see. Let's get to it. Isaiah 33:6 says, and wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of thy times, and strength and salvation. The fear of Yahweh by Shemi Shai is his treasure. Right, so these times is breaking down, as you see, when we live in it. And at that time, just like now, strength and stability is going to be the thing that gets you through it. Strength and stability being in having the knowledge of Yahweh by Shemi Shai. That's why it says the fear of Yahweh by Shemi Shai is his treasure, because it's a treasure that we hold. And the ones that had the keys to that treasure comprehend how valuable that treasure is. While the rest of these cats is just in lawlessness and disorder. Alright, let's continue on. Ecclesiastes 1:9. The thing that has been, it is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done, and there is no new thing under the sun. Right, so there's nothing new under the sun. So all these things that are happening as a sign of the times, because of the things that took place in the past, is a very example of how things are going to go down now. Only thing is, this empire didn't last as long as the Roman Empire did. So this is coming into even quicker end, so to speak. And that homosexuality and the prostitution, I mean, when you get a bunch of hoes that are above their means, and they really are hoes because they didn't slept with so many men, I mean, shit, that is the very thing that people are supposed to look up to for power, for guidance. You know, you have a breakdown in moral society because there's no order. And without that order, you're going to have a lot of widespread confusion and things, men being displaced. I mean, shit, you got women acting up. You're not able to just go get you a woman, you know. Niggas turning to prostitution and shit. You know, that's how fucked up it is. And that's what it is even today. Okay? 3rd, 4th century AD, a moral and demographic collapse takes place. The Roman population declines due to below replacement birth rate. Because all of that homosexuality and, you know, adultery and prostitution. Vice and massive corruption are rampant, while the newborn Catholic religion is gaining power. It becomes the religion of the empire in 380 AD. There is extreme economic, political, and military instability. There are 25 successive emperors in half a century. Many end up assassinated. The empire is ungovernable and at the brink of civil war. Sounds familiar, right? Let's go and jump all the way down. 2000, 2010. You'll notice America's progression through the stages of the empire is much faster than the Romans. This is the blessing or curse of high-tech mass communication. The native stock of America, specifically the betters of the stock, have stopped having kids. Vice and corruption are on the rise. See Chicago, CRA, Goldman and Sachs, neocons, lies, Enron, Madoff. I could go on. Economic and political instability are the order of the day, while America's presidents aren't being assassinated. Our elections have been nail biters since 2000, and partnership is at a fever pitch. A reborn religion called Islam threatens to co-opt the sympathies of Western societies. Rootless rejects and masculinized women, except for the thinnest upper class slice, which is known as the 1%. Betters now ape to the habit of their lessers, because they act just like them. They act until the nobility, the supposed nobility, is acting just like the cast that's on the bottom. He acting like a bunch of niggas with no home training now. Let's see. Back to Revelation 13. Continuing on Revelation 13 and 5. And there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and the power was given unto him to continue 42 months. And he opened up his mouth in blasphemy against Yahweh, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle and them that dwell in heaven. Right, because the heathen trampleth on Ashdod right now. The heathen are occupied in our place, and they're calling themselves a people that they are not. They're calling God, our power by a name that he's not known by. And they're giving them an image of our law, statutes, and commandments, and even an image of their flesh and skin color that is not. All the things are a dirty lie, man. Unclean act. These are the things that's taking place. Let me hit you with this. This is Deuteronomy 26 and 18. And the Lord have avouched thee this day to be a peculiar people, and as he has promised thee, and that he shouldest keep all his commandments, and to make thee high above all nations which he has made in praise and in name and in honor, and that thou mayest be a holy people unto Yahweh Hashem Yahushua thy God, as he has spoken. Right? It says he has and to make thee high above all nations. All right. So being high above all nations, when you imitate something that you actually someone that's lower than that level, to have a peasant play as a king or to impersonate as a king, when he's caught, of course they're gonna ridicule the fuck out of him. And that's basically what's happening with these Amalekites that are in a position of power, claiming to be the people that they are not in our land, and a God that they don't know who is or who he is. They don't know him in truth. They're only doing these things and basically twisting it up with the Talmud, giving everybody the vision that they are who they are, or excuse me, giving everybody the vision that they are not, or are the people that they say that they are, by worshiping our customs in sight of men, because in the sight of men, it's all part of the great deception, when in the end, they really worship the Babylonian Talmud, okay? They don't care about the scriptures. That's all a cover. These Amalekites is real heavy into the Babylonian Talmud and its wicked-ass teachings. And it's given unto him to make war with the saints and to overcome them, and the power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations, and all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life in the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. So everybody's going to be destroyed in this destruction to come. They weren't found in the Lamb's book of life. That's why they're going to be slain in this war and the destruction to come when Yahushua comes back. And if any man have an ear, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. Right? Because history is repeating itself through the Roman Empire, right? As we read in this article. And so while in this also applies to this empire, or the past in this present Roman Empire. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. It is the patience and the faith of the saints. And I beheld another beast coming out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon, and he exercised all the power of the first beast before him, and caused the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. Right. So all of this stuff that was taking place right here, you know, was the Roman Empire, from the Greeks to the Romans, right? All the way down to the present day. That's what that revelation, that's what it's basically following into in that circular history around this time. And he exceedeth all the power of the first beast before him, and caused the earth and them which would dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed, which was the Roman Empire. That deadly wound was healed because it lived on through Catholicism, which was established during the breakdown, I think in the 5th century, it said. All right, because they capitalized on the turmoil that was taking place, and they turned religion, religiolos, or religion, which is to hold back, to cause separation and division. All right, that was established because they found that they can make money off of this, an income. So when the Catholic Church was established, this is something that they exploited. And then they turned around and created Islam. The same way they found a way to carry this wicked-ass Roman Catholicistic kingdom on. They created Islam in a similar attempt to unify or have a foothold within the Arabic world, or the Ishmaelites. And now that they have that foothold, they've all been entangled in this one big war. So one of the things that this Islam religion set forth to do was to cause division in the Arab world, which worked perfectly. These were all different devices that these devils have established. All right. And now it's worked perfectly because now look at the condition of the Middle East. It said 5th century AD, the empire is ruled by an elite of military men, and they use the emperor as a puppet due to massive debt and financial problems. The empire cannot afford to hire foreign mercenaries to defend itself. Roman citizens have long ago been being replaced by mercenaries in the army. So the Roman citizens have been replaced by mercenaries in the army because they weren't replenishing their children by having sex and being joined into marriage. So the population rate was dwindling and it was very low. And start selling parts of the empire in exchange for protection. Eventually, the mercenaries figured out that the emperor had no clothes and overrun and pillaged the empire. In other words, he ain't having shit together. So they was like, we're going to take advantage of this. Humanity falls back into the Bronze Age, which is what's going to happen when all of this shit pops off in America. We're going to fall back into a basic primal age, you know, for those that don't get the chip. You know, before they really implement that chip and they have fully exercised it in a way that they think is causing order, it's going to be a whole lot of bloodshed, a whole lot of crazy shit. Think eating squirrel meat and living in a cave. Right, and that's why I chose that scripture so far as knowledge and wisdom being the stability of our times. 12th century, 12 centuries of religious zealotry. Salakia. The Great Inquisition, Crusades, and intellectual darkness follow. Science, commerce, philosophy, human rights become unknown concepts until they are rediscovered again during the Age of Enlightenment in the 17th century AD. Age of de-enlightenment. Alright, and so jumping all the way down to the comparison of what's going on today, so I can wrap this up. It says, 1st century Rome, present-day America is ruled by an elite of cognitive jackpot winners who use the president as a puppet, massive debt and financial teaching areas, particularly enshrined in law. The army is less and less filled with the demographic slice of American citizens that used to make up its ranks. Mercenaries, UN peacekeepers, bribed warlords, arm-twisted allies, recent unassimilated immigrants, and the desperate, poor, and out of shape now make up a larger part of the tip of the spear of the projects that projects Americans' power. America is in the process of slow motion selling off the Southwest to appease the millions of peasant illegals and cavalry allowed to invade and settle in the country. Says the fall of Rome. Right, so basically they're using this influx in all of these, what they call the influx in the refugees, and now it into its second, or its this ending stage, coming to its close ending stage, because you notice that a lot of those refugees that were brought into the U.S. were all men. The majority of them are men, because they're going to make up a peacekeeping force, right? Not only to be persecuted, they're also going to use them to that advantage. UN peacekeepers, bribed warlords, arm-twisted allies, recently unassimilated immigrants. I just saw, what is that, an article, and in the article it was talking about how many people don't, you know, how, matter of fact, it was on Vice News, and it was talking about how the people, you know, the recruiting is at an all-time low, which they're going to have to reinstate the draft. But the thing is, it's at an all-time low because everybody sees through this bullshit. So outside of the draft, what they're going to do to make up a lot of those numbers in their ranks is pull in those recent unassimilated immigrants, right? And put them put a rifle in their hand. Because they don't give a fuck about you or me. And in the sense they don't give a fuck about you or me, they have no qualms with ending us, so to speak. Not to say that the Uncle Sam soldiers did, but they don't have any ties to us at all. So they just looking for accommodation. So they'll do whatever they got to do. All right. And that's basically the end of that. Of course, I wanted to bring this out. 1 Corinthians 11:3. For I will have you know that the head of every man is Mashiach, and the head of the woman is the man, and the head of Christ is head of Mashiach is Yahweh. All right, so that's easy. The head of every man is Mashiach, which is Yahweh Shai, and the head of every woman is the man, and the head of Yahweh Shai is Yahweh. So whenever that order is thrown out of whack, every known, even Babylon, all of these known kingdoms have been broken down from the inside out. And one of the main reasons is through feminism, because a kingdom can't support that. Like I said in the beginning of this, that's oxymoron. America is having her Tower of Babel moment, and the elites applaud it when they aren't dithering over the tax code arcane or the cultural impact of a snarky late night TV host. These parallels with Rome's fall should make you feel queasy about the future of this nation, but you'll quickly push aside those depressing thoughts and switch on for another lightning round of Call of Duty. Figure it out. It's not your problem. Until it is, do you feel lucky, punk? So with that, just bringing light to the situation that we in right now. Little prophecy, just further bring this out. We at the end of it, brothers. So remain diligent, remain strong. This kingdom going down just like it did before, and we at the end of it. Feminism is not sustainable to any empire unless at the end of it. So we know we at the end of this. All right. So first of all, I'd like to give all praises and highest honors to Yahweh Hashem Yahushai. Double honors to the brothers out there doing these works of truth and sincerity. Shalom, all the apostles, to the apostles and the brothers in this work and this truth. Yahweh Hashem Yahushai, B'Hashem Makar Kodash. I'm at you again. And until next time, Shalom.